Welcome to School Your Soul, where we interview some of the wisest people on the planet, exploring ideas that nourish your mind, body, and spirit. It's education for your soul, and I'm your host, Sarah Cordial. Hey guys, long time no see. First off, a little personal news. I'm pregnant. Rory and I are so excited. The baby is due this summer. I've actually been quite sick throughout my pregnancy, so the podcast had to be put on the back burner until I was up and at 'em again, even though I had a bunch of incredible interviews in the bank. But finally, here we are, and today's interview is a big one. We have a super special guest on the show. Our guest today is Bruce Lipton. Guys, I am such a big fan of his and was so excited to get to talk to him. I actually did this interview the day after I found out that I was pregnant back in November, so I snuck in some parenting and pregnancy-related questions in here. But first off, before we get to Bruce, I have a question for you. Have you ever read a self-help book, had all sorts of aha moments, gotten a ton out of it, only to apply very little of it into your life? It's happened to me a million times. Well, did you know that your subconscious mind, which cannot be taught in the same way as your conscious mind, dictates 95% of your behavior? And sometimes the reason it's difficult to make changes in your life is because the thing you're trying to change actually contradicts the subconscious programming that you received very early on in life. We talk a lot about this today, and it's profound. Bruce Lipton is an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. Stem cell biologist, best-selling author of The Biology of Belief, and recipient of the 2009 Goy Peace Award, he has been a guest speaker on hundreds of TV and radio shows, as well as a keynote presenter for national and international conferences. He is best known for promoting the idea that gene expression can be influenced by environmental factors. In other words, people have a greater impact on their health than genetic research has previously determined. His discoveries have shown that a person's perception, not genetic programming, is what spurs all action in the body. It's actually our beliefs that select our genes that then select our behavior. Bruce says our consciousness is creating our life experiences. He says that's not a suggestion. This is the law of science. If you change your consciousness, you change your life experiences. So the question becomes, how do we change our consciousness? Well, we cover that in today's episode. We also discuss how all the cells of your body are affected by your thoughts, the difference between the conscious and subconscious mind, how most of your subconscious programming was created in the first 7 years of your life, how we can reprogram our subconscious mind, what we can do to create better programming for our children, how you can change a belief that you've had your whole life in 10 minutes, and much, much more. This is one of my favorite interviews yet. In fact, it was hardly an interview. It was mostly just Bruce spouting wisdom left and right and me listening. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome to the show. We're here with Bruce Lipton. Thank you so much for being here, Bruce.
I am so honored because I know that your work and your audience are very instrumental in helping us evolve into a better world. And so I'm happy to be here to offer whatever support I can for that mission.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've been following your work for such a long time, and I'm just a huge fan. And it was a huge deal for me when you said you would come on the show. So I just want you to know what an honor it is to get to have this time with you.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's, it's like, it's not me. I love it because it's the information. I just came up in the front and talked some of the information, but boy, the information is great.
Yes.
Because at this time on the planet, we really need a new understanding of who we are and how we operate and our mission. We have a mission here.
Totally. So I want to spend a good amount of time today talking about the subconscious mind because that is just a fascination of mine. But before we get into that, I just want to touch on some of the concepts from your book, The Biology of Belief, and give people kind of a little bit of background on some of these more scientific things where you started all your work.
All right.
So the mind-body connection is another fascination of mine. And I think it's this amazing power that we possess that we're just starting to really tap into. And people are just starting to kind of
become aware of it. And as a culture, we're just starting to kind of understand just like the tip of the iceberg about this. So your book, The Biology of Belief, you're really illustrating the power of our thoughts. And we have so much power over the health of our body, right?
Absolutely.
So how do our beliefs or our thoughts affect our biology?
Okay, so we're going to start with the fact that I did some experiments. It's like now I feel like old grandfather time because I did these experiments in 1967 with stem cells. And back in 1967, there were just a handful of people in the whole world that even knew what a stem cell was. So I had to be at the opportunity of the leading edge without my even knowing it. But it was like, wow, I was thrust into a position. What's a stem cell? A stem cell is an embryonic cell. And I said, well, why don't we call it an embryonic cell? I said, well, the moment before you were born, it was called an embryonic cell. But the moment after you were born, the very same cell is now called a stem cell. So question, why do we have stem cells? Because the human body is made out of 50 trillion cells. But every day we lose hundreds of billions of cells every day, just normal attrition, skin cells coming off. The gut, the entire lining of the gut is replaced every 3 days. When you start putting all the things together, you realize you're losing 100 billion cells a day. At some point, you better replace them. Otherwise, you got a problem. So our body is infused with stem cells all over the place. And the function of the stem cells is that the normal body cells die, the stem cells divide, and they replace the cells that are lost. Okay, so now I have embryonic stem cell, and this is what cloning is all about. I just put one cell in a petri dish, and it divides every 10 or 12 hours. So at the end of the week, I have about 30,000 cells in the petri dish, but the important point of cloning is that all 30,000 cells are genetically identical cells. So I split those cells into 3 different petri dishes. So while they're different petri dishes, they're all genetically identical cells. And I feed them culture medium. That's the environment that cells live in. And the relevance about that simply is what is culture medium. And now here comes a very important part because it's going to really connect. And that is it's the laboratory version of blood. So if I grow human cells, I look at what human blood is made out of and try to replicate it in a version called culture medium and grow the cells in the culture medium. So because I synthesized it in the lab, I made 3 different versions by changing the chemistry a little bit. And when I fed dish 1 with, let's say, environment A, the cells form muscle. And in dish 2, where I have a different culture medium, a different environment B, the cells form bone. And a third petri dish with a different environment, the cells form fat cells. Now, the most important conclusion is very, very important, and that is this. They were all genetically identical. So what determined whether it became muscle, bone, or fat? The answer is the environment, okay? And the environment in this case is the culture medium. Now we take a jump up, and I say, when you look in the mirror and see yourself, and you see yourself as a single individual, the truth is you're actually a community of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. You, whatever name you're going to say, you're going to call yourself, that name represents a living community of 50 trillion cells. And so the relevance about that is then the simple, humorous aspect in a sense, that we are skin-covered petri dishes. Underneath our skin, 50 trillion cells. And I say, yeah, and what environment do they live in? I say, well, they live in blood. That's the blood environment, okay? And then I say, what's the difference then between a cell in a plastic petri dish and a cell in a skin-covered dish? I say, there is no difference. That the behavior and the genetics of the cell are programmed by the culture medium. So in the human body, I said, well, that's the original culture medium. That's the blood. And so it doesn't make a difference if the cell's in a plastic dish or a skin dish. The fate of that cell is determined by the chemistry of the culture medium, the blood. Then we jump up one level, and I say, well, then what controls the chemistry of your blood? And I go, well, the brain is the chemist. And that puts in all the different chemicals and balances things out. I say, yeah, but what chemicals should the brain put in? I go, well, that's the cool part, because now it says, what picture do you have in your mind? I go, what do you mean? I say, whatever your vision is in your mind, is it a vision of love? Is it a vision of fear? Where are you, anger, whatever it is? The function of the brain, the chemist, is to secrete a chemical complement of that experience, of that feeling. So the blood is reading your consciousness in a sense of what's in your mind. And then all of a sudden it becomes important to recognize, well, it's like paint by numbers in reverse. In a sense, when you get paint by numbers, you start off with a picture all carved up and little numbers in each thing. And then there's a paint that has the number. And when you fill in the spots, then you create the beautiful picture. Mm-hmm. And I go, take that in reverse, and this is exactly how it works. The mind has the picture. The brain translates that picture into not paints, but neurochemicals. And then the neurochemicals go into the body and paint the cells to match the picture in the mind. It's paint by numbers in reverse. So it basically says, what's in your mind? And then I say, well, this really is so important. And people are aware of it, but they don't recognize it most of the time. And that is the placebo effect, where somebody heals themselves. I say, what does it represent? Well, you believe this pill, let's say, is going to heal you. You take the pill, you get better, and then you find out that the pill was a sugar pill. And then I say, well, then what healed you? Obviously, it wasn't the sugar pill. And I say, oh, it was your belief that you saw yourself being healed by taking the pill. So the picture in your head is, I'm going to be healthy. And then you take the pill, and the function of the brain is to translate that picture. And guess what? All of a sudden, you become healthy. And everyone goes, yeah, placebo effect. It's positive thinking. I go, yes. Now, just to balance out this one last part of it then, what about negative thinking? What picture is a negative thinking? Oh, I'm sick. Oh, this isn't going to happen. Oh, there's a problem. Whatever it is, I say, what's the picture? And then all of a sudden I have to say, well, whatever that picture is, the function of the brain is to download the chemistry that complements the picture. And so a negative thought produces a negative consequence on the body. You paint by numbers in reverse. If you start with a scary picture, then the body is going to be painted with neurochemicals to complement that picture. And therefore, all of a sudden, it comes down to this. Negative thinking is equally powerful to positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. How much? Well, here's a very interesting story. About 1% of disease is connected to genetics. 1%.
That's crazy.
And then I say, well, then where's 90 to 99% of disease coming from? Well, they say environment. I go, yes, it's coming from the environment. But the issue is, and this is the critical part, in humans, between the environment, what's the real environment, and the body is the nervous system. So the nervous system reads the environment, translates it into chemistry to the body. And then I go, yeah, but humans have a mind. I go, what's that? I say, that's interpretation. So two people can be in the exact same environment, see the same exact thing, but how their mind interprets what they see is going to make them have two different totally responses to each other, and they're in the exact same environment. It's because the mind is a translator of the picture, and the brain releases chemistry not based on the real picture. The brain releases chemistry based on your translation, what you think. So after all of that talking, now let me conclude with something simple, and it goes like this. Whatever your belief is, it can be represented by a picture in your mind. And that picture is what releases chemistry to manifest that picture. So a positive picture releases positive, and the body will be very healthy. And a negative picture will cause the body to break down, which will complement exactly the picture you had in your head. You're a creator. Let's put this right now. You are creating this. And now it's interesting because I'm saying that and people are going, oh, yeah, that sounds really, that's a cool idea and all that. And I go, back up one step here. And this is now the really serious part. Quantum physics is the most valid, truthful science on the planet regarding to testing every aspect of that science has always come out to be accurate. And no other science can claim that. So it's the most accurate of all sciences. And I say, well, what's physics? And physics, another word is mechanisms, mechanics. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, Newtonian physics, Newtonian mechanics. I go, what does that mean? Mechanisms. I say, okay, what is mechanisms? How things work, bottom line. How the universe works, not how the body works. That's part of the universe, so it has to be in harmony with the physics. And I say, and the relevance of this quantum physics, the first principle is that consciousness is creating our life experiences. That's not an arguable thing. That's not a suggestion. That's not like, wouldn't that be nice or something? No. This is the law of science. Now, people will hear this and they go, wow, that's really interesting, and then walk away 2 minutes later and not recognize again that whatever they're thinking at that moment, they're creating something. And so to me, the most important thing is we have to stop. I'm going to say it. You'll hear it. It'll probably go in one side, come out the other side. It's a fact of the entire universe at this moment. Our consciousness is creating our life experiences. Simple, fundamental understanding is if you change your consciousness, you change your life experiences. I go, that's exactly what it's all about. And then, and I'm rambling. Can I keep talking now, or you want to ask me questions?
You're here. I'm here to listen to you. You do your thing. I'm gonna kind of lead us into talking about the subconscious.
Yes, I'm going to let me lead into that myself.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. You do your thing.
So I say, well, consciousness, that's a consequence of the function of the mind. And when you say the mind, there's an implication like the mind is a single entity. And I go, no, the mind is actually two interdependent parts that integrate. One is called the conscious mind. That's the latest evolution of the nervous system. But before the conscious mind, the mind would have been called the subconscious mind. So that's the other part of the nervous system. And the subconscious mind is about 90% of the brain, in fact. I go, so what's the difference? And here's what's critical. They have two different functions, and they learn in different ways. And this, oh my God, this is where all the issues of life come from. And it goes like this. Let's start with the latest evolution of the conscious mind. That is related to a lobe of brain tissue right behind your forehead called the prefrontal cortex. This is the seat of consciousness. And I said, what does it mean? Consciousness is connected to your identity, your unique person, your spirit is your consciousness. That makes you. So the conscious mind is sort of like a receiver of your identity, a spirit. Okay. And I say, and what's the character? And I say, conscious mind is creative. And that's what makes humans different, because we have a well-developed conscious mind. Other animals are subconscious. So I'll talk about subconscious in a second. So the conscious mind being creative is the one that translates imagination into reality. So the mind can have an imagination. I am healthy. I'm happy. I am loved. I am this. I live in a South Sea. I drive a Tesla. Whatever kind of thing you're thinking about. And I say, and the function of the mind. Oh, if people are taking a note, this little box right here. This let's. Okay, I wish I had some trumpets and a drum roll. This is the most important subject sentence. It's very short but profound.
Okay.
Here we go.
Give it to us.
The function of the mind is to create coherence between your beliefs and your reality. Okay, if you have a belief, the function of this mind is to take that belief and manifest a life experience. And you go, well, that's funny. And I say, no, that's quantum physics. Go back to it. As quantum physics says, consciousness creating life experience. Your mind is the source of this consciousness, and its function is create life experiences. So whatever is going on in your mind. So I say, okay, well, the conscious mind being creative has imagination. And because it has imagination, and the mind's function is to create belief and with coherence with your reality. If you have a belief of something in your conscious mind, then the function of the mind is to manifest that as best as it possibly can. So then the function of the conscious mind is creative. That's the real important part. I said, what does that mean? I said, well, if I ask you a very important question, I say, what do you want out of your life, which is a very big question. Anything you come up with by definition is a creation in your mind. I want this, I want that. And I go, well, then the function of the conscious mind, creativity, represents your wishes, your desires, your aspirations, all those things that you want. Okay. And I go, great. Function of the conscious mind is to manifest those. And I go, and the subconscious, I go, the more primitive part, that's basically a record playback device. It's sort of like a CD player. You put a blank CD in there, you record something, now you have a program, and every time you push the button, the program plays over and over every time you push the button. So it's habit. The subconscious mind are habits that you acquire from your life experiences. So, I want to defuse the idea that subconscious mind is evil, because a lot of people think, oh, that's where the evil is. And I go, the subconscious mind is a cold machine, just like a CD player. It's the programs that you put in there that can be good or evil. Don't blame the subconscious mind. It's the most powerful, wonderful ally we have when the programs are right. Give you an example. When did you learn how to walk? You go, oh, well, before 2. I go, did you have to relearn how to walk? The answer is, oh, no. And I go, well, thank you, subconscious mind, because it's the habit. So then by definition, subconscious minds are habits that are created from life experiences.
Is the subconscious mind more naturally negative because it's more like
no negative? No negative. Oh, negative. Don't say negative.
So no negative. So it's not.
Here's a CD. It's blank.
Okay.
I put it in the recorder. So far, is it positive or negative?
Nothing.
I said, well, is it going to be positive or negative? I said, well, it depends on who put a recording in it. Why is that relevant? The mind does.
Okay, so many of us just got negative programming.
Now you hit it on the head. That our programming, 70% of our developmental programming is disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting in our abilities. Okay? You can't do this, you can't do that. Well, that's a program. And so to make this very quick then, the movie The Matrix is not science fiction. It's actually a documentary. Everyone has been programmed. And you have to be programmed, otherwise you can't use consciousness. I'll give you a simple example. A baby's being born, and let's pretend it could talk, and the baby's just coming out of the birth canal, and we say, oh, welcome, and then we say, tell us something. And the baby will have to say, I don't know anything, I just got here.
So sorry to interrupt you, but can you be programmed in utero?
Yes.
Okay, let's start there.
You are programmed during the last trimester.
Wow,
okay?
Cool.
And I'll tell you why. The new science, epigenetics, was the one that shows that the genes don't control life, the environment controls life. I said, well, what's the environment? I said, it's the blood. I go, oh, then wait a minute. As the baby is in the womb, it's being nourished, of course, by blood. So the blood of the baby is derived from the blood of the mother. What's the point? Whatever the mother is experiencing, because emotions are chemicals and things like that, okay? And fears, stress, and hormones and neurochemicals. So blood has nutrition, and everyone thought that's the role of the mother, provide nutrition, and the baby's genetics will determine its fate. That was old science. The new science of how environment controls the genes is called epigenetics. So I say, why is that relevant? Because the mother's sending blood to the baby for nourishment, but it also includes all of her emotional chemicals and her whatever hormones are running through her system and all that. I say, why is it relevant? Just as much as it's adjusting the behavior of the mother to respond to her life, it's adjusting the genetics of the baby. So the mother is a genetic engineer. She's determining the genes by what information is going in along with the blood. How's her reality? Is she happy? Is she afraid? Why is this? Because the baby's going to be programmed. I say, does the baby need to know what it's afraid of? I say, no, it just has to have stress hormones. I say, stress hormones are going to be the same in the mother and in the baby. So if the mother's stressed, the baby is stressed, not knowing why, but also knowing it's not safe. That's what the stress is. So in the last trimester, this is when the nervous system starts to record the patterns of the mother's blood and her emotions, even what she eats, because then the fetus has already gotten an indication of the diet and all the food, all the feelings, what's going on in the world. And so when I say the mother is a genetic engineer, I mean that the composition of her blood is going to control the genetics of the cells, just like the Petri dish study, okay? And so, and then I want to say the father is every bit as important, because the father's relationship to the mother also determines her emotions and her security. So its parents are genetic engineers, because how they react to the world that will adjust the genetics of their child. Okay, so that's how the first programmings come in. And it's then once they're born, then it's up to how many years? 7? 7 years, the brain of a child is not in consciousness. It's below consciousness, as we refer to consciousness. It's in when they put wires on your head, EEG, electroencephalograph, read brain activity. The vibration of a child, predominant vibration between birth and 7 is theta, which is imagination in function. So that's why kids can have an imaginary tea party, pour nothing into a cup and drink it and say how wonderful the tea was. That's imagination, that's theta. But theta is hypnosis.
Okay.
And the relevance is this. The programmings that are put into our system in the first 7 years are not programs that we acquire like reading a book and practicing. The programs are observing other people. So you observe your mother, your father, your siblings, your community, and you observe them in theta. It's not just observing them. Theta is a download. So you're acquiring programs by watching other people download their behavior. And so the fundamental programs in your subconscious mind didn't come from you. They came from observing other people. So if they have a positive behavior, so in that sense do you. But if they have a negative behavior, then so do you in your subconscious, okay? So I go, and 70% of the subconscious is negative, disempowering, self-sabotaging. These are programs we downloaded from other people. Big point. Your conscious mind has your wishes and desires in it. Your subconscious mind have other people's programs in it. And if they don't match your wishes and desires, then when the subconscious is operating, you're not going toward your wishes and desires. You're going to replicate those behaviors, okay? So the very interesting part then comes to in the first 7 years, I download behavior. And I say, well, first, why? And the answer is simple, as I said, when the baby's born. If there's no program to reflect on, what can you be conscious of? If you buy a new iPod, the front of the iPod is called the touch screen, and that's creativity where you can make a playlist and do all the adjustments. I go, that's conscious mind. That's creative. But I say, if you buy a brand new iPod and you open it up and push play, nothing happens. I go, why not? Well, you can't create. Why? Because you didn't put anything in the hard drive. And the hard drive is the subconscious. So as we develop, the first 7 years is the hard drive, programs, how to be a member of a family, how to live in a community, all the rules of behavior that are required to be a functional member of that family and that community. It's downloaded. But they're copies of other people's behaviors. And if they, again, have negative behavior, so do you now. And I say, yeah, but then you say, oh, no, but I won't use the subconscious mind. I'll just use my conscious creative mind. And I go, and now here's the most important fact about that. And that is, when we are thinking, the conscious mind is directed inwards. A thought is inside. If I say, tell me what you're doing at Sunday at 2 o'clock, if you're going to look for the answer, it's not outside in front of you right now. Somewhere in your head, you're going to go inside, oh, what am I doing on Sunday? And you close your eyes, you start thinking. I go, conscious mind went inside. And I said, well, why is it relevant? Well, the conscious mind is the driver of your biology. It's the pilot, okay? I go, why is it relevant? I said, well, the moment you have a thought, the pilot lets go of the wheel because the pilot has to go inside to get the answer. I said, well, does that mean you stop everything the moment you have a thought? And I go, no, and this is it. The subconscious is autopilot. If your conscious mind lets go of the wheel, the driver is you're still driving, but now it's driven by the program in the subconscious, okay? And so basically, and people that drive a car also know this. Why? Because they can get into a conversation or have a daydream moment where they're thinking about stuff, and yet they're still driving the car, and they didn't anybody. I go, yeah, the moment your conscious was directed away from focus, then the subconscious knows how to do everything because it's habit. Whatever way you've done it, that's the way it is. But if the habits came from other people, then when you're not paying attention, the behavior that's coming out is not your behavior. It's the behavior of the program. So I'll put this little quick story in here because I've told it in my lectures for 30 years now. So let me extend it one more time.
Please.
And it goes something like this. You have a friend and you know your friend's behavior very, very well, but you also know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the same behavior as their parent. So you want to tell them, you go like, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then you back away from Bill because Bill is going to go ballistic. How can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And I go, in Bill's conscious mind, he is nothing like his dad. But when he's thinking, he plays his dad's behavior. And he can't see it. Why? Where's his consciousness when he's thinking? It's looking inside, right? And I go, well, yeah, but if his behavior is being expressed outside through the subconscious program, at that moment that the behavior is going on, he can't see it because his conscious mind's inside looking for an answer, okay? I'll give example. Let me give example.
I need an example of that.
You're driving the car, and now you know how to drive. You've been driving for a while, and you have a passenger, and you get into a wonderful conversation. And your conscious mind is now focused on the conversation. You blah, 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 blah. You keep talking and talking. And then you look out the window and you realize you really haven't paid attention to the road for the last minute, 5 minutes. Why? You've been engaged. So I say, tell me what the conversation was about. You say, yes, we talked about this, this, and this. Then I say, and tell me what was on the road during that few minutes. And you go, I have no idea what the heck was on the road. Why? Because I was in the conversation. See, my consciousness directing conversation, subconscious took over driving the car. I didn't crash the car. I drove at the right speed limit. I did everything just right. But I don't have any memory of it, do I? No, I can tell you what the conversation was about, but I can't tell you what truck just went by, what car, where the kid was, what was going on. So that's the model. It says this. When you are thinking, the subconscious just checks in as autopilot and will run it. If you're walking down the street and you have a thought, you didn't walk off the sidewalk, you didn't hit a tree. Subconscious is 1 million times more powerful and a processor than conscious in the first place. As a matter of fact, if you're driving a car and it gets out of control, the first thing your body will do is shut off your conscious mind. And the reason is conscious mind is very slow. That's why you can't use it in an emergency. So in an emergency, the signals in the blood will shut off the conscious mind and put you in an automatic reaction.
Oh, okay. This explains. I was just going to ask a question, but this explains it. Okay,
yeah.
Go.
So now you're in a reaction response. Conscious mind can't do it. It's too slow to do that, okay? So consciousness just gets shut off at that moment, okay? So the idea is it's an interaction between the two minds. When the conscious mind is thinking, the habitual jobs that we do are picked up by the subconscious, which is habit. Walking, talking, driving the car, doing the job, anything you know how to do, you learn how to ride a bicycle. Well, you can now ride the bicycle, not think about the pedals and the balance. You can have fun thoughts as you ride your bicycle down the street, but you're not controlling with your conscious mind, that bicycle. That's subconscious habit. It'll do it. Okay. So habits are not evil. Habits are good or bad based on where you got the habit from. Okay. Now we've talked about all levels except this. The conscious mind thinks and the subconscious mind takes over. We said that. And the subconscious mind is primarily programmed by other people. So Bill's father's behavior is in there when Bill is thinking. His father's behavior takes over. But because Bill is thinking, he does not see the behavior that he just played because he was thinking. So the point is this. You say, well, Bill, you're just like your dad. He has no idea he's ever seen that because the only time he's like his dad is when he's playing the subconscious program and he doesn't see it. Now, the big number, if we had a big screen with a flash of light here right now, and I would say, how much time do we spend thinking? And the answer is between 95 to 99% of the day is in thought. And I go, well, what's the relevance of that? And it's like, oh, my God. What that means is 95% of the day at least, most people are in thought and their behavior is controlled by the subconscious and their behavior is then programmed by other people. So whatever behavior they're expressing represents the teacher, parent, or whatever it was, and they can't see it. So all they know in the day is like, I went out with great wishes and desires to have what I want. And when I came home, nothing happened. It was, it was a bad, lousy day. And I go, and you say, why? And you go, well, the universe is not supporting me, or nature, I wasn't dealt a good hand of cards or whatever. And I go, no, you didn't see. Here it is. 95% of the day, you were not looking for your wishes and desires. 95% of the day, you were playing the exact same behaviors that you were downloaded with. 70% are negative. You didn't see them. And therefore, what was the point? You created the whole crappy day thinking that it was the outside that was not letting you have what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Internal subconscious programs, 70% negative. Everything you were doing, 70% of the day was not supporting you in any way whatsoever. It was sabotaging you.
That is unbelievable. I hope everyone took that in, because that's one of my favorite facts I always tell people about the subconscious, is this 95% thing. So let's rewind just a little bit. As a parent, what can we do to help create a new generation of members of society that have better programming?
Okay. This is the whole point right here, and that is this. The child is going to live a life based on the program. What are you telling your child? And the issue is, some parents think that I can get my child to conform by acting like a coach on a football team or something. The player isn't performing well. The coach doesn't say, hey, please, why don't you try harder? The coach isn't going to say that. The coach is going to say, come on, you can do better than that. Who do you think you are? That's not good enough. You don't deserve to be on this team. I go, that's how coaches act. Why? Because that's to needle the player, to get them to, okay, charge up, I'll work harder. But if you act like a coach to a child who is 7 or under, recognize this. The child's not conscious of the meaning of what you said. The child's just recording the words. Not good enough, not deserving, not lovable, not, sickly or this or that. I go, in the first 7 years, what's the program? I'm not deserving, I'm not lovable, blah, 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 blah. And I go, so this is why when I'm involved, we were doing belief change programs, that somewhere between 80 and 90% of all participants, when tested for the belief, I love myself, which is like the most critical belief to have, 80 to 90% of participants in every group will not test positive for that belief.
Wow.
Right? What's the meaning? And I say, well, then their unconscious behavior doesn't give them any power or anything, they don't love themselves. So it's like they're self-critical. Oh, I don't deserve. Oh, I'm not good enough. I said, where'd you get that from? Programming. So the idea about it is this. If you want to be a conscious parent, then what you want to do is always leave messages and talk and say, oh, you're the most wonderful, the most beautiful, the most powerful, the most intelligent, the most blah, 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 blah. Why? Because if those are the download words and that child operates 95% of their life from those download words, then, my God, they could be the most powerful people, okay? And it becomes important now. And then we have to back up, and this is where the problem comes. So I'm going to be the parent. And I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to give my child all these wonderful encouragements about who or he or she is, about how wonderful they are and all that. I go, yeah, really great. Guess what? 5% of the day you're going to do that.
Yeah, because you're still going on your subconscious.
You got your own program. Where'd you get that from? Your parents.
Okay, so you got to do your own programming, reprogramming.
Yeah, you have to reprogram yourself as a parent. Or at least be close enough with your partner that if you say something that sounds in any way limiting to your child, your partner will go, oh, that's not really. To what? We have to reprogram our negative stuff, or our negative stuff is passed on to the next generation as it's always been. And here's an interesting fact. If you think about the power of the programming, they study the fate of children that were adopted into families where cancer is running in the family. Little sidebar. And the adopted child will get the same family cancer with the same probability that any of the natural siblings. But the adopted child has completely different genetics. And the point about that is simply this, is that the cancer can be passed on. It wasn't genetics, it was behavior. And this is what we now know. There's no such thing as a cancer gene. There is no gene that causes cancer. Law of science, right there, bottom line. No gene that causes cancer. I go, why is it relevant? Well, we talk about cancer genes. I said, where's it coming from? Genes might be correlated with cancer, but they don't cause it. It's the environment and our behavior and our programming that will determine whether that cancer is going to be created or not. And if we change, and this is how people that have terminal cancer and all of a sudden have a whole belief change, like boom, they have some kind of upheaval and they just say, oh my God, I'm going to change my life. And then they end up having, remission. I go, what happened? I said, well, the cancer wasn't there because the cells were being stupid. The cancer was a physical expression of the picture in the mind. And when the mind changed, the cancer went away. So all of a sudden, it's like people think, well, the cancer cells cause cancer. The cancer cells are stupid. Only 10% of cancer is even connected to heredity in the first place. 90% of cancer is people that have perfectly wonderful genes, but create the cancer because of the perfectly unwonderful subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. And so our health issues are related to the chemistry of our blood, which determines the genetics of the cells, and the chemistry of the blood determined by the picture in the mind, translated by the brain, and everything goes up to the top, up. Where does it control? I said, just what physics said. Physics said consciousness is manifesting this. And biology and physics are now complementary because they both say the exact same thing.
I love it. I think it's a big, for people who have had cancer, I think that can be a very scary thought.
Well, thank you. I want to cut in because that is a very important fact.
Yeah.
That is very important because what we're talking about here in truth is consciousness is creating our issues, good and bad. Well, when someone hears, "Oh my God, I created my cancer. I created the bad relationship, the violence, the domestic violence," and I go, "Yes," and then they go, "Oh no, I can't accept that." And then I want to. This is the part that I want to emphasize: the concept of blame, shame, those kind of things like that, guilt. I say, guilt, blame, and shame are connected to this, and this is the point, that you know how to do something right, and yet knowing how you know how to do it right, you choose not to do it. Now I can blame you. But if you have no knowledge of any of this stuff, and you were operating without instructions and user's guide, and so ignorant of the reality, how can I say you're guilty? You didn't know how to do it. I can't blame you. I have a standard shift car, and I say, hey, why don't you use my car and go to town? And you say, I don't know how to drive standard shift. I said, yeah, just go. And then the car goes bucking and down the street and everything. And then you call me from town and you say, oh my God, the guy at the garage said the clutch is blown out. And I go, damn it, I don't blame you. You're guilty for doing that. And it's like, wait a minute. You said you didn't know how to drive, and yet I said take the vehicle and go. And then I cannot now tell you because you've ruined the clutch, it's your fault. You're going to have to pay for the clutch. You're guilty. I'm blaming you. You should be ashamed of yourself. I go, absolutely not. You didn't know how to do it? No one told you how to do it? You're in the dark. You're stumbling in the dark. I don't know how to do it. I'm going to find it.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the part. The words blame, guilt, shame do not apply until after you know how it works, and yet in spite of knowing how it works, you choose to do something, okay? So if I say right up to this minute, I don't care if cancer or whatever happened in your life, even if it's the stuff you don't want. I mean, like cancer you don't want, violence, domestic violence. Nobody really wants that. How'd they get into it? Programming. They'd had no idea. And the reality is they were doing it unconsciously anyway. And so can I blame you if you didn't even know how it worked? And the answer is no. So please, everyone let go of past. It's not relevant. But future is relevant.
Yes.
Because with future and with knowledge, you have an opportunity to understand your power and how that power could be good or how that power can be bad. That's now in your hands. Okay, so.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about then reprogramming the subconscious mind. How can we empower ourselves? How can we get in there? I know you said earlier, subconscious mind and the conscious mind learn differently. And this was a pivotal point for me in understanding the whole process. So let's talk about that.
Okay. The conscious mind, being creative, just by that definition, means I can learn in any number of ways. I can listen to this podcast. I could go to a lecture, watch a video, read a book. I go, yeah, you can educate the conscious mind by reading a self-help book. I go, well, great. And I asked a person, did you read the book? And they say, yes. And I said, here's a quiz. And I find out, oh, you got 100. You understood everything in that book. And then the question is this. Now that you've read the book, now I know you understand it. Did your life change? And the answer is no, not really. I go, why? And I go, the conscious mind was the one that learned that way. The subconscious mind still has the original programs. Mm-hmm. So I don't care how much you read and how much knowledge you have, you can educate the hell out of your conscious mind. But if you don't rewrite the program in the subconscious, I go, yeah, but it doesn't learn in the same way. The conscious mind, as I said, creative. I can just go, aha, I got an idea, and boom, I just changed my mind. Okay? But subconscious mind is a habit mind. And by definition, think about it. You don't want to have a habit and then lose it, randomly all the time. You learned how to walk before you're 2. You're still walking. Thank God that habit is locked in. So a habit resists change just by definition. So if it's a habit mind, then you have to figure out, how can I change a habit mind? I said, well, first, you have to learn how the programs got in there in the first place, okay? Mm-hmm. I say, oh, how'd they get in there? I go, in the first 7 years, you were hypnotized in theta. So I say, oh, if I want to put a new program in, then if I use the same brain activity, theta, then I could put a program in. I go, yeah, theta is hypnosis, meaning whatever the program is, it didn't go through the conscious mind. It went straight from outside into subconscious programming. So if you can get in theta, you can reprogram. I go, simple story now. Theta is a lower vibration than consciousness. Consciousness is alpha is calm, and beta is very, more complex consciousness, like we're using right now. And theta is below alpha consciousness. So I said, well, how does it work? I said, well, during the workday, your vibration is high, beta, that's, complex consciousness. And I say, when you come home and relax, the vibrations slow down. Now you're in alpha, and that's calming, okay? And just as you go to bed, alpha is consciousness. When alpha activity stops, you're at the next lower level called theta. Well, alpha stop means you're not conscious. That means you just fell asleep. But as the vibration is going down, guess what? The next part where you're sleeping, theta is in operation. Well, that's hypnosis. So if you put earphones on as you're going to bed, the moment the conscious mind checks out, the subconscious is listening to the program. So if you put on self-help programs like, increasing your health, your wealth, your relationships, they're called self-help, self-hypnosis. That's self-hypnosis.
Do you have one that you like?
I haven't used one for years. I used Louise Hay when I started, and I don't know if they sell those. And Sounds True probably has a whole bunch.
Sure.
So there are different sources, and you find what you really want in your life. And what's the point? As you're sleeping, the dialogue that's coming in is all this positive programming. So you repeat this, and after a while, guess what? Without even being awake, you're unconscious. You're learning a program. So that's called self-hypnosis. That's the way of doing it, okay? Mm-hmm. A little caveat right here. The subconscious mind is like the CD player. I say, why is it relevant? I say, well, if you have a program in the CD player and you don't like the program, you can't go up to the player and say, okay, stop playing this program. I don't like this program. I want a different program. I say, why? I say, well, how long of talking to the CD player will it take before the program changes? It'll never change. There's nobody in there. Who are you talking to? I go, this is the issue when we try and talk to ourselves to get out of a program. Oh, don't do this. Oh, my God, I'm doing it again. Don't do this.
Yes.
And you get frustrated because you keep telling yourself, this is what I want, and then you go back into the old behavior. And I say, well, let's stop the frustration at this moment for a simple reason. Nobody's in the subconscious mind. So talking to yourself to try to change that subconscious program is frustrating, to say the least, and a big waste of time.
Yes.
Because nobody's listening at that level, okay? So I say, okay, first 7 years hypnosis and then subliminal tapes in the evening going to bed. simple way of learning because you don't even have to engage the conscious mind. In fact, it learns when the conscious mind stops. So that's even easy. And then I say the next way of learning is, well, the theta predominance, the hypnosis state, ends at around 7 because then the more predominant state is alpha, the conscious state. And I say, well, you still learn in alpha. I said, yeah, how'd you learn? I said, well, how'd you learn how to ride a bicycle? Well, you had to get on the bicycle and you had to practice. And you kept falling off the bicycle. You got on the bicycle. I go, well, how'd you learn? I say, practice. You repeated it over and over again. In school, what was the times table? I don't know, repeat it over and over again. What's the alphabet? You had to go continuously until you can get from A to Z without a problem. And the moment you could get to A to Z without a problem, guess what? Now it's done. You didn't have to do it again ever. Why? You can call it up in your head right now. And that was 5 or 6 years old, and it's still there. So habit mind. I said, well, habit mind by nature is habit. So if you want to put something in that's different, then you actually have to practice a habit. You have to do it, and you have to repeat it and repeat it. Just like if you want to play an instrument, you don't know how to play an instrument, but you got to learn it. You got to practice it. So what's it based on? Repetition. Habituation is the other word. I say, so you want a different behavior, then practice a new behavior. It's practice. And I like it because there's a phrase which I always love. It's like a new agey phrase, and it says, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Meaning, I'm not happy, but I say, yeah, but what do I want? I want to be happy. So I need a program of happiness. So I say, well, how do you get a program? Repetition. So I say, then what do you do? I say, you walk around all day, and every time you think about it, you say, oh, I am happy, or I am happy, all day long. You just keep doing that. Relevance, repetition. Repetition is practice. I say, then what happens? Subconscious mind learns from repetition. There'll be a point where you can ride that bicycle without falling off of it. There'll be a point where happiness becomes a way of life without you even having to think happiness, because now it's automatic. Because if I have a program that says I am happy, I don't have to think about it 95% of the day. What's the function of the mind? Create coherence between the belief, the program, and reality. So if I get a program and I repeated it so much, I am happy, and then guess what? Once I've done that work, I don't have to do it again. Because now if I have the program, I am happy in there all day long, your unconscious mind, 95% of the day, is going to create behavior to do what? Compliment I am happy. And then all of a sudden you're happy without even having to work on it anymore.
How long does that take?
It all depends on the message and the importance of it. It's not like, 12 hours and 37 minutes. Now, I have no idea. It's based on what the significance is, how important it is in your life. Some people say, it takes 21 days to make a habit. I go, well, somebody picked that number.
Yeah.
No idea.
Did you have an experience in your personal life where you were kind of reprogramming, and do you remember what that was for you?
Yeah, I can remember because that was the early way of reprogramming for me. And the early way was, I remember the first time where I started to realize it was because I started to understand the role of conscious and subconscious, okay? But then I found myself one day at a stoplight with my consciousness observing my consciousness. And what was I thinking about? And I started just observing what I was thinking about. And I started to realize, what are my thoughts? Oh, this isn't going to happen. I won't get there on time, blah, 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 like that. And I'm watching going, well, how the hell do you expect to get there on time when you think you won't get there on time? When you're anxious and you're nervous, you're saying, I'm not going to get there. And I say, yeah, and what's the creation? You won't get there. And the more anxious you get, the more sure you're not going to get there. Mm-hmm. And so I had to realize, my God, start paying attention to your thoughts, because they're running all the time. But they're running and we're engaged in the thought, but we're not observing the thought. When you start observing the thought, then there's a moment of what? Observation. Say, I'm thinking, I'm not going to get there on time. And all of a sudden, stop. Don't say that. Everything's okay. Let go of that. Let's go.
Okay, I see.
And every time that a thought would come up, habit, being observing, I could say, okay, every time that comes up, I got to stop it. Mm-hmm. Because then what happens is I make a new habit. What's the habit? If that thought comes up, cancel it. And then guess what? There's a period in time where then a thought doesn't come up anymore. Why? Because now that it's a habit, as the thought even starts to come up, the habit will say, stop right there, and it's over with. So that was one of the first things. And it was habituation. It was like, start paying attention. Your thoughts are running. If you really now know that your thoughts are programming your life, now it's important to look at your thoughts as you're doing them. Because what you're saying is, I'm creating. And I say, I'm creating what? Whatever the heck that thought just was.
Mm-hmm. And you...
yeah.
Sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know people are going to be asking, like, how will I know what my negative programming is? And
thank you for the question.
Yes.
Because now I love it, because the answer is so magnificent. Because I could say a conventional thing, well, go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and go backwards in time. And I say, don't waste your time doing that. There's an old phrase called, don't kill the messenger over the message. And I say, whoever facilitated a program in your life, let's say a negative program, and you have to go back and you go, oh yeah, who did that? Oh yeah, my father did that. Oh my God, I hate that. And then what I'm saying, what are you doing? You're reliving exactly the program and the experience by just going there. And I go, and what are you doing? You're going to now get upset at your father. And I go, so who gives a damn? He's not here. I'm here. So what was the point? He was the messenger, but it's irrelevant. It's the message that I downloaded. So what's the message? And I go, and this is the cool part that I was alluding to, 95% of your life is the amount the subconscious is running your life. So by definition, the characteristics of your life are a printout of your program. Basically saying this, the things that you like that come into your life, and they come in like, oh, they just came in, I have these things. Well, you have them because your subconscious program acknowledges that's what you want and that's what you have. But then here comes the one, wake up here. It goes, whatever you want, and you have to work hard. You have to struggle. You have to sweat over. You have to put tremendous amount of effort in trying to get it. Stop for a second and ask the question, why am I working so hard to get this? And then the answer inevitably is, my program doesn't support that. And I'm trying to override my program. My program keeps, short-circuiting, preventing me from get there. My conscious mind doesn't see the program as doing that. All it sees is it's not happening. And says, oh, then I'm going to work harder and I'm going to make it happen. I go, you didn't even see it. The first fact was, it was you that said it wasn't going to happen. So this is a real critical part of it, is that invisible stuff. And so I say, so what's your program? Just look at your life. What you have and you like, you got it because you have a program. And what you desire and you struggle for, you struggle because your program doesn't support that end. Bottom line, you can assess your own programming.
So our conscious mind kind of carries our wishes and our desires.
Yes.
Our subconscious mind is this programming.
Yes.
And you're saying that we can take our wishes and desires and program them into our subconscious, right?
That's the sweet spot right there, because what that means is this. If I put a wish into my subconscious mind, and what's the function of the mind? To make coherence between my belief and my reality. And my belief is I would love to have this. Then the mind is supposed to do it. And I go, and guess what? It'll do it 95% of the day without you making a conscious effort. Because when you're not being conscious, then what's the function of the subconscious? To play the program and manifest it. And I say, well, if I put things I want in my subconscious, then even when I'm not paying attention, my behavior is still going to go toward what I want. So that's really what the destination is all about. So the idea is to take those wishes and desires, either using hypnosis or practice repetition, and reprogram the subconscious mind. Because if I do put all the positive programs in, then the consequence is simple. I'm going to get those programs without making an effort. I don't have to. Why?
That sounds so nice.
It is, but you have to put the work in the beginning part to put the program in. Now, the hypnosis repetition does take a time element to make it work, okay? So I want to say necessity is the mother of invention. And on this planet, we have a big necessity at this time in civilization to change our belief system, because we're being self-destructive, destroying ourselves, destroying the planet. We have to change beliefs very quickly. And since necessity is the mother of invention, the necessity has led to a new modality of belief change called energy psychology. And energy psychology are practices that engage something called super learning. And you go, what's super learning? I say, well, maybe you've seen somebody read a book by moving their finger down the page. As fast as they move the finger down the page, they read all the words.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so you can stand in a bookstore in 10 minutes and read a book by just turning the page and moving your finger down the page. So all of a sudden it says, if I can use the same learning practice to get that, I can download a belief that fast. And so energy psychology modalities are engaging super learning practices that facilitate a download, a rapid download. Some of these practices, you can change a belief you had your whole life in 10 minutes. And this is real exciting. And you say, so what are they? I say, well, on my website, brucelipton.com, brucelipton.com, I have about 25 or so of these modalities listed under resources, belief change. And so I just suggest that people take a look at whatever feels in harmony with you. Try it out, because you want to change your belief. I say, well, how do you know what you want to change? I say, well, that's simple. Again, look at your life. Where's the struggle? And turn that struggle into a positive present tense statement. Let's say I want to be healthy is my intention, and I say this is very critical. If I program I want to be healthy, I say then play that on a recorder today, and let's come back next year and let's push the button and see what it says. I want to be healthy. I come back 10 years. What does it say? I want to be healthy. I go, what's the point? You can want for years. You can't use a future thing, because then what you're saying, it's always in the future. So this is like the funny part, because you have to say what it is you exactly don't have. It's like you're sick as a dog and you're saying, I am healthy. I am healthy. That's the program. Why? Because if that I am healthy is the program, the function of the mind is to turn around that disease, because it's going to make coherence between your belief, I am healthy, and your body's not. Well, the mind's job now is to make the body healthy, because it's being driven by the belief. So when you download new behaviors, they always have to be in present tense, like you have exactly what you're looking for right now, because that's the program that the mechanism is going to operate from.
Oh, I love it. It's so exciting. I've had an amazing benefits from listening to, I listen to meditation in the morning and at night. And I feel like it's been incredible. And I've done psychology work. I've done so much self-help stuff. I did so many things. And then eventually just knew that there was another component. And that's kind of when I stumbled upon a lot of your stuff and then really started exploring that.
It's not even my stuff. I downloaded that.
Yes. Whatever it is, it's been amazing. It's been super helpful. So, winding down here, do you believe, kind of there's a spiritual component to this show. Do you believe, what are your spiritual beliefs? Do you believe that there's like a divine higher power guiding us or? Okay,
let's get to this right away, because I went into science because I didn't have a belief in any of that, because the spiritual people always talked a spiritual word, but their lives never really matched what their spiritual words were. So I sort of took away that's not really true. And science to me was always, because a belief of science on this side of the planet is a belief on the other side. And so I went into science without spirituality. Once I started to understand the nature of how the cells, the behavior of the cells is reflected by the environment, then I also recognized a very important point. No two people are identical in a sense biologically. Why? Because if I put my cells into your body, your immune system will say not self and eliminate them. If you put your cells into somebody else's body, their immune system will say not self and eliminate them. So basically it says this, your cells have some self-identity, because that's how your immune system knows yours from others. So I say, where is this self-identity? And it comes down to, on the surface of our cells are a set of protein antennas, like television antennas in a sense, proteins. And no two people have the exact same set, so it's like a giant combination lock. And they're actually called in medicine, some of them are called self-receptors. And they use these to match tissue donors and recipients, like somebody needs a heart. And I say, why is it relevant? If the donor and recipient, their self-receptors are completely different numbers, let's say, on a combination, then the immune system will be very aggressive to get rid of it because it's so different. But if two people share parts of the same combination, the more they share of the same combination, the closer they are to being self, the less aggressive the immune response. So that's how you pick a donor and a recipient, by looking at self-receptors. Well, everyone's focusing on that physical characteristic. The simple reality is this: your self-receptors are receivers of self. I said, so where's my self? I said, well, the antennas are picking up a signal. I go, yeah, but where are the antennas? On the outside of the cell. So I said, where the hell do you think the signal's coming from? Outside of the cell. So I say, oh my God, each of us has a combination lock of receptors that are receiving an environmental signal that is connected to you, but not to anybody else. It's your own identity. And all of a sudden, if you look at it that way, then you go, oh, then it's like a television. It has an antenna, a program is coming in, and whatever the program is, it plays on the television set so you can see it. But if the television breaks, you say the television's dead. And I go, yeah, television's dead. But the question is the broadcast still there? You go, oh, how do you, yes. I say, yes. And you say, how do you know? I say, well, one thing you can do is get a new TV set, plug it in, turn it on, and tune it to the same station, and the show's back on again. I go, each of us has a station as represented by these receptors which are receiving a broadcast. No two people receive the same broadcast. So the relevance is our bodies are like the television set. We're playing a program being picked up by the antennas, okay? But if the body dies, is the broadcast still there? I go, of course the broadcast is still there. The broadcast and the body, they're two separate things. And so the body can come and go, and a new body can show up with the same set of receptors, and guess what? You're back online again. And the cool part is, well, does it have to be a male or a female body? I go, that's not relevant. That's a television set. How about black, white, red, brown, yellow? I go, television set. That's not the broadcast. So in truth, what I started to recognize, which then profoundly changed my life, of course, is I am the broadcast. The television is just the program playing at this moment. If I die, that just means the television broke. I'm still the broadcast. And so by definition, I go, well, what does that represent? I go, in physics, the signals picked up by the proteins are coming from what is called the field. I say, what's the definition of field in physics? Invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. I go, oh, interesting. The word spirit is defined as invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, quantum physics and spirituality are saying the same thing, that we are the field, we are the spirit. Well, I don't care which word you want to use. If you want to be scientific, say field. You want to, get off the science, then say spirit. It's the same word. And so basically, I went from a non-believing scientist, but as being a scientist, I opened up to the reality, my identity is coming from a broadcast. And therefore, I am an eternal entity in the field, but a transient entity in the physical plane.
Beautiful. I have never heard it put that way before. That was really beautiful. All right, final question. Before I get to this, do you have any requests of our audience? Places we'll put your website, we'll put all the links that we've talked about.
No, as long as they know the website, that's really cool, because there's a lot of free information, videos, interviews, all kinds of things that they can download for free. And it's just simple, brucelipton.com.
Perfect. All right, Bruce, why are we here? Why do you think us as humans were put on this planet?
Okay, it's interesting because I had a very same question to myself the day I recognized that I was the spirit broadcast. Yeah. And I asked myself the exact same question. Why be a body and a spirit? Why not just be the spirit? And interesting, I joke about it, but it's true, is that the answer welled up from the 50 trillion cells in my body. And the answer came out and it said, Bruce, if you're just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? And And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, the body is a virtual reality suit. It takes the energy of the world and converts it into vision so I can see a picture. It's got taste. That's a conversion of energy of the world, and sound and touch and smell and of feeling love. These come from the cells of the body, translating the environment into sensation. A spirit can have an understanding and awareness, but what does chocolate taste like? Well, that's a machine that has to break down the chocolate into the chemistry, and then the brain turns the chemistry into a vibration and energy and sends it back to source. So spirit can taste what chocolate's like only because there was a body that could translate chocolate into a vibration. So why are we here? And I say, well, to have sensation and experiences. I go, here's another part. And I go, but the body's not just taking information and sending it back to source. Source is sending information to the body. So source is saying, go here and go there and do this and do what do you want and make this and do all that. And I say, oh, well, wait. So it's not just information going from body back to source. It's source controlling body. And I go, oh, my God, it's just like very simply this. It's like we can't go to Mars. I want to know what Mars is all about, what it's like to live on Mars. So we send up something called the Mars rover, which looks like a go-kart with a lot of instruments on it. I go, the Mars rover, what does it represent? It doesn't look like a human, but it acts like a human. It moves around on the surface and has sensory devices to see and feel and smell and taste and touch what the planet is like. I say, how does it work? I say, the guy at NASA sends a signal to the rover, moves it all around, and the rover's sensory devices send signal back to NASA to say, here's what the temperature is, this is what the air is like, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, we are Earth rovers. We move our vehicles around, and our vehicles send back the images to source. And so I say, what's the consequence of this? And so this is the part that I just love the most, because it says, if there's a heaven, this is where it is, because this is where you come to create. We came here to create life experiences and have sensations. What's it like to be in love? What's it like to do this? What does that chocolate taste like? What does a rose smell like? Well, I got this machine, so I can do it. And I go, so what's the joy in this? And when you think about it, I say, well, people think, well, you die and you go to heaven. I go, boy, you wasted the entire life, because the idea was this is heaven. This is where you came to come and work and create and manifest. And then you go out and you go, but look at the world is so crapped out. I go, that's because we are operating mainly from other people's programs. What if we stop playing the programs and just live from the conscious mind? And I go, this is exactly what happens when people fall in love. Because I say your life could blah, 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 blah every day. And then you meet someone, and 24 hours later, it's heaven on earth. Everything's beautiful. The food, the sound, the music, the scenery, the job even that sucks is not so bad anymore. And it's like, I'm in love. And I said, well, what happens when you're in love like that? I said, you're not playing the program. It's like taking the red pill in the movie The Matrix. You stop the program. I say, what happens? The moment you stop the program, you manifested heaven on earth. That was called the honeymoon. The honeymoon. I go, that wasn't an accident. That's called a creation. Okay? I say, how'd you create it? I say, you stopped playing the programs that were creating the garbage, and you started only operating from conscious mind, no program. That's what we know biologically when people fall in love. They're not using subconscious programs. They're operating from conscious. Yeah, but conscious is wishes and desires. The moment you stop playing the damn program and you operate from wishes and desires, earth turned into heaven. And I go, that's what it was intended to be in the first place. The only problem is people knew about the programming and have taken our power away via the programming. And I go, and how long ago was this? And I go, a minimum of 400 years ago, because the Jesuits for 400 years have told people, give me a child until it is 7 and I will show you the man. I go, oh my God, nobody listened to them for 400 years. And they already knew it was even 7 years. Give me a child until it was 7. Yes, that's the exact programming time.
Wow.
And then ever since then, for 400 years, leadership or people have known that if I can program your first 7 years, I program your life. And we have all been programmed. Welcome to the Matrix.
Oh, Bruce, that was so amazing. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
I so appreciate the opportunity of being with you. So thank you so very much. And I hope our audience gets an inkling of how truly powerful they are. Because if they understand this, if we all started creating heaven on earth, then the result is obvious. We'll all recognize what heaven is right here.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. For more information on School Your Soul, visit us at schoolyoursoulpodcast.com and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at School Your Soul. Also, I love to hear from you guys, so send me an email and say hi. Let me know what you're struggling with or what you'd like to learn more about, or even who you'd like me to interview next. My email is schoolyoursoul@gmail.com. And thank you so much for those of you who have reached out and shared your appreciation for the show. It really means a lot. I'm so grateful to every single listener out there. That's all for today. Namaste.